the four pillars of the masculine principle. At its highest abstraction, the masculine is awareness itself, the silent, the empty silence that precedes all form, precedes all content, all energy, all movement. In other words, that precedes its counterpart, the feminine. This is what we could say the ontological level, the metaphysical level of the masculine. But however, when it goes down one layer, we get into the functional layer of this masculine principle. And this is where awareness, at its highest reference point, metaphysical layer, structures itself in functional terms, in operational terms. And these are the four pillars of the masculine. When the masculine principle becomes structural and provides a room to the manifest world. Now, let's look at the four pillars of the masculine pole, each one. These are stillness, containment, direction, penetration. Now, you will notice that each of these pillars are structural in nature. That is because where they come from, they are preceded by their metaphysical nature of the masculine pole, which is structure itself. Awareness, emptiness, it's the framework, the empty space for all content to come in. Therefore, it follows that the functional pillars of the masculine pole, of the masculine principle, are themselves structural in nature. Stillness, containment, direction, penetration. And these pillars, they interlock. One leads into the other. Emptiness or stillness leads into containment. Now, when you have containment, you have a boundary, you have some kind of framework that allows for a vector direction to come in. Otherwise, if you don't have a containment, direction becomes, it dissipates. But if you have a containment, now a vector can emerge. So containment leads into direction, which in turn, direction being a vector with an energy with a direction, wants to fulfill itself. And that fulfillment is action or penetration. So direction leads into penetration. So these are how the four pillars of the masculine interlock. One leads into the other. And these are a loop, basically. It's the masculine operational cycle. Stillness, containment, direction, penetration, and back again. And now that we know the pillars and how they interlock, how they connect with each other, let's zoom in on each specific individual one and see how they are expressed in humans, in us, in our behavior. And we will look first at healthy expressions of those pillars, and then we will look at examples of distortions, shadow distortions, unhealthy expression of those pillars. So first, stillness. A healthy expression of this masculine pillar is the ability to stay grounded, like those trees over there. Grounded means not reactive. It doesn't mean non-responsive. It simply means the ability to stay grounded under stress, for example, or regardless of the situation, you are present, you are not absent, and you are responsive to whatever is happening in the environment. However, you are not reacting to it. You are fully present, grounded in this experience. So this would be a healthy expression of stillness in humans, as an example. Now let's look into containment, the next pillar. Containment, it follows from stillness. It's similar. As an example, we can think of the ability to hold space for whatever is happening in the environment. Particularly, for example, if it is an emotional, volatile, intense experience. So it follows, you have to be grounded first in order to do that. Again, these pillars, they interlock. So containment, that with the pillar that we are talking about right now, it follows from stillness. So you have to be grounded in order to be able, have the capacity to hold space for another person or intense situation. Next, we have the third pillar, direction. An example of a healthy expression of direction in us is a sense of purpose, having goals, healthy goals, having the ability to make decisions, to lead other people. In essence, having purpose and meaning in our lives. Which leads, again, these pillars follow from each other. Purpose or direction leads into the fourth pillar of the masculine pole, which is penetration. And a healthy expression of this pillar is decision making, action, purposeful action. Again, it follows from the previous one. Action that has purpose and meaning due to direction. Purposeful, meaningful action. Clarity. The ability to cut through illusions. Clarity seeking, truth seeking. Action, I'm repeating myself, purposeful action. So these are examples of how these four pillars of the masculine pole can manifest and express in us in healthy ways. And now let's look in a few examples of how the same traits can be unhealthy, expressed, distorted by the shadow. On the masculine side, the unhealthy expression of these four pillars are always a form of control, either control or withdrawal, avoidance. So these four pillars will be either over or under expressed. And their over or under expression is always a form of either control or withdrawal. And that follows because, and that is so because, again, the masculine pole in its essence is structural. The pillars themselves are structural in nature, and a structure can either be too rigid, controlling, or can be absent and not be there at all. So stillness, its unhealthy expression, can either be rigidity, if it's a form of control, or avoidance, if it's a withdrawal. Containment, unhealthy expressed through the shadow, can either be rigidity in terms of control, because the containment, the boundaries are too rigid, control, or if it's absent, this will be no boundaries whatsoever. This will be lack of boundaries, appeasement, no spinal, no structure. Now let's look into direction. Its unhealthy expressions could be if it's a overexpression, control. The direction can become dictation, searching outcomes for the sake of the outcomes, regardless of the consequences. And if it is underexpressed, in other words, withdrawal, no direction whatsoever, that looks like no meaning, drift, aimlessness, a leaf in the wind. And finally, penetration, if it's a form of control, that's aggression, violation, force. And if it's a form of withdrawal, underexpression of that trait, that is passivity, impotence, no force whatsoever. So these are a few examples for you to start grasping how these four pillars of the masculine can be expressed in us humans. Always remembering that we are talking about pulsing consciousness here. So this goes beyond humans or sentient beings, and definitely beyond males and females. But this is the core, the essence. I hope you understand better now how this masculine principle functions in a more functional, operational manner, and how it's manifest in different ways in our lives. And this is a good foundation for us to, even though we already touched on this before, but for us to move on in this polarity series. And next it will be, of course, the four pillars of the feminine. And I'll see you there. Be well.